Finally, around metrics, one insight I've had over my career is you kind of want to look for the anomalies. You don't actually want to look for the expected behavior. So a famous example was at PayPal. None of the top 10 markets that the company was planning to go after included eBay. But one day, someone noticed that 54 power sellers had actually handwritten into their eBay listings, "Please pay me with PayPal," and brought this to the attention of the executive team at the time. The first reaction of the executive team was, "What the hell's going on? Let's kick them out of the system. That's not our focus." Fortunately, I think David Sachs came back the next day and said, "I think we found our market. Let's actually build tools for these power sellers. Instead of forcing them to write into their listing, 'Pay me with PayPal,' why don't we have an HTML button that they can just insert?" Well, that started to work. And then he said, "Well, actually, why do we make them insert it? Why should we make them insert it all the time? Why don't we just automagically insert it for them so they can insert it once, and then every single listing they have forever, it'll just automatically appear there." So that became the success for PayPal. Similarly, I was at LinkedIn, and I saw this stat that made no sense to me. The UI of the site was a little bit different back then, but 25% of all clicks, maybe 30% of all clicks from the homepage were people going to their own profile. And that made no sense whatsoever. I mean, like it was a settings, like you had to literally go to the right margin, find a link, and it was 25 to 30% of every single click at scale. I mean, so this is like statistically valid stuff. And it made no sense whatsoever. Never have seen like a UI perform that way. And I kind of went around for weeks trying to figure this out. And then someone very smart, actually it was Max Levchin, said something to me, and I was like, he's like, "It's vanity." And I'm like, aha. People were looking at themselves in the mirror. That's a pretty good answer. So, because they weren't editing their profile, nobody has like something to edit every day in their profile, but they actually were just looking at themselves in the mirror every day because it made them feel good. And then you could actually test that hypothesis and say, well, if I have more content, do I look at myself in the mirror more often? Turns out you did. If you had more endorsements, did you look at yourself in the mirror more often? Turns out you did. So we actually figured out like what was actually underneath the utilitarian product that the product team thought they were building was actually a lot of emotional vanity. They didn't exactly translate it to the best possible feature like the PayPal example, which you couldn't easily put a button that said, "Be more vain today," on the homepage. That would probably not work perfectly. So it never really like took off the way the PayPal example did, but it really clarified what users of the product really wanted. And we wouldn't have found that without looking for anomalous data. The final topic I want to talk about is details. And there's, in my assigned reading, there's a great book I really like by Bill Walsh called "The Score Takes Care of Itself." And the basic point of the book is that if you get all the details right, you don't worry about how to build $1 billion business, how to have $100 million in revenue, how to have 1 billion users. That's a byproduct of getting all the details of what you do every day to be excellent.